I think we covered a lot. There are some more things that I wanted to cover, but I'll quickly run into some questions that were um, asked by other people, uh,
Yeah,
asking me to ask you guys. So,
yeah.
first question is to Amitav. Amitav, Parag Kamani over here is a great music enthusiast,
I'm Parag here.
fantastic music expert, and very passionate listener himself. He's asking, can you recommend a few blues musicians who are born after the turn of the century, like born after 2000? Can you recommend a few of these new blues musicians, young prodigies that we should be watching out for, apart from this guitarist called Amithav Gautam?
No, so I really love a player called Kingfish, Christone Kingfish Ingram,
Good
and
player.
he's really good because on one side he's very technical, he shreds and all that, but on the other side he plays very soft, very melodic, and it's very different. I really like him, and I don't think he's born after 2000s, but he plays now, and his name's Kirk Fletcher, and he's another guy who's like really good,
Yeah,
and Josh Smith, and
yeah.
Josh Smith is very good,
Great player. Very, very good player.
and he mixes a lot of jazz, bebop,
Yeah.
and he will suddenly play this, he'll suddenly play that. He's very unpredictable, so I think
Great player.
he's one.
Kirk
Yeah,
Fletcher, and who did you say the
Josh Smith.
Josh Smith? All right, Parag, that's your answer. Parag also asks Ehsan, um, what blues musician would you like to see perform in India and why?
Actually, I would like to see my guru, I would say, Robin Ford.
Robin Ford.
He is my favorite. My guitar playing changed when I heard him. The first day at MI, when I joined MI, I heard him playing, and I just said that, what is this? What is this style of playing blues? What is this kind of phrasing? What is this kind of tone? And that was it. So I would like to see him perform here. In fact, I've offered to whoever brings him down that I'll look after him for 3 days. I'll drive him around everywhere. I'll go pick him up at the airport. Whatever he wants.
I
You
don't
can
think
try
that
and bring him to the Mahindra Blues Festival.
Yeah, I wish he comes here.
yeah. And I'm sure there is absolutely no doubt that I think he's going to be actually staying at Ehsan's place, and Ehsan is going to host him for sure. There's nobody else in this country who can understand Robin Ford outside of his music better than Ehsan. So that's amazing. And another question for you, Ehsan. All these blues influences, um, can you give us some way you used it in your Hindi compositions?
Well, actually,
Let's
it's
keep
like,
let's keep rock on out because it's
yeah,
completely that.
yeah.
Outside of rock on, in the Indian context of things,
See,
where all
like
did you use it?
if you talk about like a film called Laksh, we had a song called Agar Main Kahun on that. Now, if you took that, now this is in a Hindi context, we took it. It becomes the blues here. You know what I mean? Like even this other song, that is a song called Alpha Allah from Bhag Milkha Bhag. That's a blues riff here. Now, if I put it into a blues context, that's a blues song. Then you know what I mean? Maybe I should make it into a blues song.
Amazing, it's amazing.
Sufi
And,
blues.
maybe people should hear the story about the way you had improvised the solo of Agar Main Kahu and just went on, and how it was chopped and you had to learn the solo again.
Yeah.
So
Shankar, yeah. Shankar, he just said, you go play. I said, "Look, I didn't want to play a solo first. And Shankar refers to me as the reluctant guitar player because for some reason, let's not get into that. But he said, you got to go and play the solo. So I said, but what, how long? He said, just keep playing. So I keep playing. And, I just kept playing, kept playing. Shankar said, now you get out of the room. So I said, no, he's in typical in his Hindi. Arey yaar, bahar jana tu, chai bhai jaake pee kuch. And when I came back about half an hour later, he had taken my whole solo and edited it into a shorter solo, and which is now the solo which I mean I play when I play live. So I had to relearn it, because there's some parts, Shankar has cut it from a musician point of view, but it's not necessarily the way I fingered it while playing. You know what I mean? So there was sudden like a rethinking of how to play the entire solo, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, there you go. The blues. That's the blues creeps into all of that. My guitar solo on Ma from Tare Zameen Par. That is a blues solo. I mean, it's like that's all blues here. It's like it's not the form of blues, but it's the emotion of the blues. The way you play blues guitar. That's applied there.
Awesome. And just for context, look at the Ma solo. It's a completely structured, created solo, end to end, like how it is, versus Agar Mai Kahu, which was an improvised thing which was chopped and then you
Yeah,
had to learn. So both different forms of blues
yeah,
itself. This
exactly.
question actually was asked by this amazing veteran journalist Narendra Kusnur.
Ah,
Uh,
yes, of course. Hi, Naren. How are you?
Naren is like a guru for me when it comes to understanding music form.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Everything from Indian classical to Carnatic classical to Marathi legends to blues to jazz to
yeah, yeah.
African music. He knows everything. That's
Yeah,
Naren, and he asked this question. So thank you, Naren, for this question. Naren has also asked one question uh, to Amitav, saying, "How do you select the songs that you want to play for a set? How do you?"
Actually, for me, it's like if I have to select a few songs for the set, I'll select what I'm recently listening to, and of course, there have to be a few crowd favorites because otherwise, you need to connect with your audience. So, but whatever I'm listening to on a current basis and what I'm really liking, that's what I will try and select.
Awesome. Now, I have one more question. This is on the equipment. I think we never spoke about when it comes to blues. Everybody knows that if you have an acoustic guitar in your hand, you can play blues, or if you're an electric guitar player, just plug it into a bloody amp and you can play the blues. But that said, there are some myth busters, and there are some things that I wanted to generally ask about is pedals, drive pedals. What is a how do you use a drive pedal in an amp? Do you use a clean amp and drive it, or do you use an already dirty amp and you drive that into something, or and then what are the how do you use other effects like a chorus or a tremolo or a vibe or something like that? How do you use all this? Wow, of course, everybody would want to know what do you do having a wow which is
yeah.
there. And so let's start with you, Ehsaan. Equipment.
Well, actually, I mean, if you're an electric guitar player, you would need like a decent guitar to play, the blues on. I wouldn't say go for something very expensive, but go to something that feels right for you. What may feel right for you may not feel right for anybody else. So you may play someone's guitar and hate it, but buy the same guitar in the shop and think that it's a perfect guitar for you. And my first thing would be to any guitar players is if you have like an amp, whatever amp you want to use, Fender, whatever you want to buy, plug in first without pedals. Make sure that you work on your tone the way the pure tone is supposed to be. Like sorry, I'll just put this pedal. So when you're playing, so this should sound good when you play it clean like that. It should sound the same or even better when you put like an overdrive. So the tone is all in here. The tone is here and in your heart and your soul. I think that is the basics starting of getting a good sound for any form of music. Whether it's blues, whether it's rock or whatever. Then pedals, a drive pedal would really be I think a must for a lot of guitar players because most of them, if you play that kind of style, if you're playing more jazzy blues, you probably want to just keep it clean. A drive pedal which would work in two ways. If your amp is driven, it will push the amp even harder. When you turn the level up, it'll make the tubes overdrive even more, compress more. Or you use it the way I like to use it. I like a clean sound, and then I use a drive pedal. So so that is one way of using. Now the point is, a lot of newer guitar players like Eric Gales and even Josh Smith, they use a lot of pedals, tremolo and vibe, and yeah, that all is very useful, and it's great if you've got all that. But if you want to just play blues, you all you need is one dry pedal, maybe a delay pedal to give you a little bit of depth, to give you a little bit of like a bit of a spread to your sound. So here I've got a delay on. I'm not. It's part of my software setup, but it's just there. It's there at the end. You can hear it. So I would say you could start with just that. You don't need to go and buy too many pedals. Like I said, first work on that tone with your hand. Make sure it sounds good with just you, your guitar, and a cable. Then put the drive in just to enhance it. It's like just dressing up the basic thing. It's
Yeah,
like putting on clothes.
I also remember you telling me about these modern digital delay pedals are actually uh, great effects to use as composing pedals. You can actually uh, make new compositions because of the delay giving you
Yeah,
sound.
yeah. No, that's true. You can do a lot of stuff. I mean, delays are great fun to use. I mean, I love using delays, but I don't use it as much as supposed to. I like it just there to make the sound like Warren. Warren Mendot. So he says just to add a little bit of muscat to the sound. You know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amita, what do you do? Are you a digital pedal person, or are you an analog person?
So actually, I'm very bad at pedals and sound and all that. So in fact, I did a class with Warren sir, and he's the one who first taught me how to use a dry pedal. I have a tube screamer, and I have a tube amp, a Black Star amp, and he told me that you never don't ever use a clean amp with a pedal. Drive the amp a little and then use the pedal. And that was like a revelation to me because the sound was so good. And
Yes,
and he said if you want to clean it up a little bit, you can always reduce the volume and the tone knobs. So
that's amazing. Yes,
that's the only thing I use at the moment. Only a tube screamer, and also have a blues driver, the Boss.
yeah,
So I try to drive the amp and then use it when I really need to uh, get a lot of overdrive.
amazing. Yes, and LivDemy says we have to get Warren also in. I think we should have that ever.
You
I
must.
will, I
Warren
will,
is
You should.
I will
Warren.
exit. I'll have to exit because that's amazing. And he and Ehsaan and you can just have this jam session. I think it should just be a jam session actually. Coming to guitars, you said pick up a good guitar. Now there's a whole battle in the blues space itself between these four, right? The Fender Strats. Everybody knows about the Strats. Of course, there are the Fender Tellies also.
Yeah, yeah,
Then
yeah.
there's the Gibson, the Les Pauls, and those semi-acoustic guitars. And then there is Ibanez also, who some great legendary big players of the blues
Yeah,
also
yeah.
use Ibanez. Like even in jazz,
John Scofield.
yeah,
All,
John Scofield uses it. Pat Metheny uses an Ibanez. Uh,
yeah.
Aaron-
George Benson.
George Benson uses an Ibanez, and the Gibsons, you have Mr. BB King using the
Yeah.
Lucille. You have many, even I think if you
Freddie
look
King,
at
Albert King all used Gibsons. Yeah.
yeah, and Albert Collins, for example, uses a Telly,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and so varied sounds, and of course, when I hear Jeff Beck playing, I don't think there's any other guitar player who uses the Stratocaster
Oh, he's
like
something
how
else.
it used to. It is used like the kind of variations that he gets uh, in between of show, but in between one line, one solo line, six combinations of pickups and
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
That's
It's crazy.
it's at that level. So now, who what do you think? Are you a person who prefers, okay, for this song I'll use a Strat, and for this song I'll use a humbucker like a Gibson, or
Mhm.
are you someone who says that I'll one guitar and that's me? How do you do that, Ehsan, for you?
Well, actually, see, the thing is, in a situation, I'm just lucky that I've got a lot of guitars, but in a situation, if you had one guitar, and I'll say, like, I just had this guitar. This is a hybrid. It's a Tom Anderson, it's a Telly, and this is what you call the Nashville wiring, which has two single coils and a humbucker on a Telly. So it gives you the best of Telecaster and the best of Stratocaster. So, and you've got the humbucker to do whatever different kind of thing you want to do. So when I can do all the clean sound, the whole telly thing. So there's that. Now, if I can, if you want the typical Strat kind of quack, I can do that as well when I combine these two pickups. So I get
That's like a strat.
so that now when I do the whole combination between this pickup and the bridge, I get again a very telly. And then when I go to full humbucker, and I want to do like you get a fatter sound, and I put on drive, like then you're in heaven. One second, I'm going to turn the gain up a bit. And then, so the guitar's pretty versatile. Doing volume down, you can clean up the sound. So the thing is, and if you're using single coils, it doesn't mean that you can't play jazz if you're on single coil. So and if you take it, turn the volume down a bit, turn the tone down a bit. So you can do all that. So even if you have one guitar, you can manage fairly good with even one guitar. Even if you're yeah.
I remember you saying this about the PRS also. The PRS is also a very versatile guitar that gives you a lot of variations, right?
Yeah, I mean, like with one guitar, you can do a lot of stuff. Now, I mean, gent and metal and all that, that gets into a different kind of area, That
Yeah.
comes into, but you can play metal. I mean, the early metal bands like Judas Priest, they use
It was-
Stratocasters. They didn't use, EMG pickups and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the combination of an SSH is a great way to start your playing. I think the Ehsaan Noorani strats were actually SSH, right?
Yeah, correct. And that was had a lot of good combinations on it.
Yeah, I think that's great. And Ehsaan just demonstrated that with one guitar you can get a lot of tone. So
Yeah,
pick up the right guitar, guys, and no need to get into the argument of which is better, because what Ehsaan said is right, that what fits into your hands and what sounds good for you is the best guitar for you.
yeah, exactly.
Amita, what guitar do you prefer? Are you have you always been a Strat player? I see a Strat in your hand.
Yeah, so mostly I've been playing only Strat, but only once I mean, I have a Strat and a PRS, and I really wanted a I really wanted a humbucker guitar when I heard the Allman Brothers, because they are a two guitar band, and all the time the two guitarists have humbucker guitars,
Yeah,
and that fat sound, that ferocious sound almost, and that's one space where I only use humbucker. I don't play single coil at all. But
yeah.
in the blues, mostly I only play single coil.